horse drifted alarmingly in the betting, was, fancied in the morning, continued to drift. It was late on the exchanges to lose. It was something you'd see in a Dick Francis novel, Charles Buttons.
The ground is soft. It's
heavy.
It's soft on times.
It's heavy.
Okay.
A very warm welcome to the Barstew's Inquiry Sunday Sermon. My name's Lee Keys, and joining me as always tonight to chew the fat on what is a very, very interesting week to chew the fat. As usual, my two favourite cohorts, John Lang and Chris Lorne Malvo. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
International edition.
Yes, I am in deepest dank Gdansk. With the producer to produce this pod. I'm here because the heating's cheaper, and I like looking at freezing fog rather than the racing this week, and abandoned shipyards, things like that. The sea of the communist rule that gripped this poor country right up to 1989. The Poles proceeded. Yeah, the Poles proceeded to chuck out communism, and have certainly thrived since. However, what concerns me, chaps, the Western world seem to be dipping their toe into Stalin waters. And I come on to this topic because we're approaching a time now where the white paper is due, and I'm told it is going to be definitely January, behind the scenes. And the state, with the Gambling Commission, seems to want to take an active role in punters' lives, people's lives. They seem to be more into people, like, right, you can't do this. We're going to have to restrict you on this, sir. And I'm sorry, but this seems all wrong because if you think about everything that goes off, alcohol, fast food, right, let's do a similar comparison. Spread betting with IG. I've mentioned this before on pods. It's classist, right? So there's no restrictions to do your bollocks on the footsie, or the dollar, or the yen, or the zloty, whatever you want to do. However, when it comes to betting, it's looking like, and the info I have, chaps, is that the gambling minister has said behind the scenes that affordability will be coming in, and it will be based on losses rather than spend limits. So basically, if you are a losing account, they will have right to open banking, right, to go into your bank seamlessly and look at your transactions, and have you got like a $4,000 Amigo loan?
You've fucking got millions of them. I'm Mexican. Amigo is my middle name. I tell you, my middle name's Owen. So every fucker.
And this is incredibly dangerous. This is something that I feel sorry for people coming into the sport, because how on earth, that level of intrusion. And the government are going to give them permission to do this. And you've seen how bookmakers have behaved so far on this, kind of withholding punters' funds, all sorts of misdemeanors. And they're giving them the power to just and they'll misuse it, because they want the guy that's betting on the slots. They'll be more than happy to accommodate those sorts. But anyone that's showing any kind of form, it's like, well, I'm afraid and I'll come on to the subject here, that I had an email from a chap called Gareth Matthews.
Yeah.
And he started betting with Boyle Sports. His 20 quid bet came in today on the GGs, and he got an email straight after, no warning. You're now limited to £8.33 per day. Deposits, which is $250 a month in essence. I mean, and the government are going to facilitate this. John, this is disastrous for the industry, isn't it?
Who's batting for us?
Well, that's it. That's the worrying thing. There are no punter representations, nor have they.
Irrespective of there being no punter representations, where the fuck are the BHA on this?
It's. I know. It literally. But we saw this the other week. Do you remember on the horse racing committees? And it's either journalists or
this shouldn't be this really though, Lee, should not be a matter of who's on a committee. This should go right to the top, and Harrington should be vocal on this.
Yeah.
I mean, if this sport is in crisis anyway, it's funded through punting. Now she can't see the danger signs of this. What are we paying her for? I mean, we've had a disastrous weekend. There's nothing from her in the racing press or and how things can improve moving forward. There's nothing regarding this white paper from her. You know, I mean, her salary. Why is racing even bothering giving her the money if this is the best we've got at the top of the sport?
These people aren't punters.
What we might as well do, Chris, we might as well shave a monkey and kick it through with Laura Ashley to get and sit that in the big chair.
Well, it's bizarre, isn't it? We've touched on this before. We've said it ad nauseum, but this kind of prohibition, because let's be honest, this isn't about reducing social harm. This is about eliminating gambling, right? That's what it's about, I think. And obviously the Shilton type of people behind it. But, when you prohibit something that there is a sustained demand for, it goes underground. The war on drugs, what happened to that? There's a white Christmas every day. There's so much drugs on the market, right? And we're all dreaming of it as well, not just Bing Crosby. But the thing is that when you prohibit something that there's a genuine demand and a widespread demand across all demographics, it goes underground. And criminals, organised criminality, always moves quickly to fill the gap when something's made illegal because they are more nimble, they're well resourced, and they are unfettered by regulation. So what you'll find very soon after these measures come into place, you'll see offshore sites, you'll see black sites coming on board saying that deposit with us, it'll be unrestricted, yada yada yada, we don't care where you get your money from, and it will force punters to go down that route with all the risks that will you get paid, will they disappear? And that's what's on the cards here, because you see either people will give up, in which case that's bad news for the sport. People say, oh, fuck this, I'm not going to bet on horses anymore, I'm not going to gamble. Or they're going to say, I want to gamble, but I'm going to bet with this firm in, wherever, the Maldives or whatever offshore jurisdiction. And I just cannot believe they haven't worked that out. And, I've seen the Gambling Commission website, I've seen the press release, I've seen the people, and they aren't punters. They have no fucking idea. They are career civil servants. And, what has been lacking from day one is genuine technical input on how people bet, why they bet. Because, the word punter, people, they're lumped under one umbrella. There's so many different types of punter out there. There's the person, every Saturday will have their Yankee or Trixie. There's serious punters. There's so many different types of punter, but they seem to be lumped into this great big blob of people that are all degenerates, and we must do what's best for them. And I can only foresee disaster when that comes in. So rant over. That's me done on that. But it makes you angry. Genuinely.
No, that's a quality rant, Chris. I mean, what I will say is that the Gambling Commission this is quite weird. They're supposed to regulate the industry, like the whole industry, but they seem anti-gambling themselves, which is rather bizarre. If you're the Gambling Commission,
they're prohibitionists.
Yes. Absolutely.
They're prohibitionists. All this shit, social harm, is nonsense. The long-term view, whether it's articulated in black and white or not, I rather doubt, is to reduce gambling to nothing. I just cannot understand why bookmakers are happy with this, because eventually they'll run out of punters. It's like we said, the Ponzi scheme. Eventually there'll be no one left. The £5 guy sitting watching the football, having £5 on the next time in the next corner, or the colour of the footballer's shorts or whatever. Those eventually you'll run out. because they're not your core base. You want to be looking after people that punt regularly, and 99.9% of them do it responsibly. A tiny percentage will fuck up their lives, and there obviously can and must be things to help those people. But to lump everyone in to say that, oh, you're a degenerate, you are. I mean, I often have this conversation with people, say, oh, do you like a bet? And they look at you sort of slightly old-fashioned, as if you're a degenerate. And I said, do you like a drink? Oh, I love a drink. Are you alcoholic? Well, no. Well, it's the same thing.
Exactly.
You know, that's the thing. But gambling's got such a bad rep, whatever.
But I mean, the evidence, the proof's in the pudding here, because the World Cup 2022, so the Qatar one compared to the 2018 one, in the group stages was 30% down on Betfair exchange. So 30% down, like that's a huge drop, which was already dropping, by the way, going into 2018. So what are they trying to do? They're trying to kill, like you said, Chris. They are trying to kill the industry. That's it. And bookmakers, you can fight back here, because Ben Keith, Jeff Banks, listen up here. Gambling Commission have broken Rule 6.5 of the regulator's code. This basically, they should provide a survey to the customers, i.e. the bookmakers, how they've performed. A customer satisfaction survey, if you like, for the bookmakers on their investigations and how they conduct the Gambling Commission conduct their business. The Gambling Commission have never conducted such a survey, which basically is a breach in their terms and conditions, what the government have said that they must do.
They're solely to serve bookmakers, then, Lee, or are they not supposed to serve punters as well?
They do absolutely nothing for punters. They don't care one jot.
I mean, their overall remit. Do they have a mission statement or anything?
Yes, the current mission statement is to crack down on money laundering and gambling harm, and that's the two. That's it. It's head down. They've got the blinkers on. They're trained by the kilt. They're out the track one at Beverley, and there's no change in the mind or saying no. We need to protect punters, because there's a lot of punters that are being ripped off by licensed bookmakers at the moment. People that have had money frozen in accounts and stuff. They're not interested. They just say, well, you need to take it to. They just pass the buck. They don't care. They don't even reply. I mean, the producer sent them some fantastic emails that were basically undefendable, and it took about 3 months for them to reply, and it was literally just corporate waffle, like you'd literally what you get in a politician's. It's terrible. It's a terrible state of affairs, and the GC aren't fit for purpose. They need wiping out and rid of, because if again, but like you said, John, if the BHA don't stand up for the sport and see what's happening here and really get it and absolutely get what's happening here, this is an attack on the punting culture. As we've seen with ITV, they promote the gin, they promote the stories, they don't promote the betting. And how you, like you said, Mark Johnson thinks we can fund this sport from selling ice creams, as John said. But this again, this is why I'm in Poland. They seem to have turned the corner on all this nonsense. The West are going into this nanny state kind of. You need protection. You need to be kept safe. Which is absolute baloney. Anyway, we're gonna.
The nanny state would probably prefer we spend our money on inflated gas and electricity prices.
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah,
they would.
They would.
They would.
Because they get the VAT off that, and they get
backhanders because they're out on the board.
Absolutely. The game is so rigged at the moment that, like I say, none of us have got a chance. Anyway, let's try and go on something more cheerful after a communist start. Right, well, it's not really cheerful, because the shit show that is British racing, as we saw on Friday and Saturday, it was like a comedy of errors. Everyone could see what was happening. They managed to get the meetings on Friday for Cheltenham and Doncaster, but then they forgot about the natural sort of like weather phenomenons like frost, as in, it's open, right, you've took the covers off, it opens up the ground, right? So you have your racing, and then lo and behold, the temperatures drop. And Cheltenham tried to get the covers back on quick. It didn't work. Doncaster even said it takes 8 hours to put the covers on, so they weren't putting the covers back on. So they were a million to race on Saturday. So who decided to race on Friday? Chaps, it's bizarre. This is all bizarre, is it not?
Yeah, it is meant to be elite sport, isn't it? And that's the issue. And we've said again, time and time again, this isn't elite sport. I think Frankham said it's run like a gymkhana, and I think we've sort of expressed it in those terms before. Saturday is your showcase day. That's why the Premier League and all those and all the football pros take place on a Saturday, because that's when people are off work. Friday, yeah, it's disappointing for those that had tickets, etc. But fundamentally, you'd rather race on a Saturday than on a Friday, and that's sort of common sense, isn't it? I don't know why they took that decision, but you got a whole Saturday card wiped out. Mad.
Well, I'm pretty certain if both tracks would have left the covers down, they could have raced Saturday, and not raced Friday. I'm pretty certain they would have been able to. So it is very bizarre, the decision making taking place. Jason Jackson's been on. He said the TV racing is going to be very dead very soon. The sport shoots its feet that many times. I'm amazed they've actually still got legs.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, John. I mean, can you believe the expertise levels in all this? I mean, it's just bizarre.
It's nothing to do with expertise levels, is it? That's the problem, I mean, again, I'm sick of banging this drum. It's careerists getting these jobs, and nobody gives a shit. I mean, why hasn't there been an inquiry announced into Newcastle not being on when Wolverhampton could get on? Supposedly the same surface. I'm guessing that there wouldn't be wildly different temperatures. I mean, what's gone on at Newcastle that they couldn't get the all-weather on there?
I mean, this is the other thing. I mean, I'll come on to Newcastle in a minute, which again is more comedy. But just another subject that touches my soul. Well, I'm not a national fanatic, neither are you, John. We admit that freely. But the dolling off of fences. Now, it's a sport that basically people find it thrilling to watch a horse jump a fence and jump it well, and I get that. I get the the country bumpkins that come together and what a good jumper that is. I get it. I totally understand it. So we come to a situation where literally every sort of Saturday, and in midweek, but I'm just focusing on Saturday because usually these are bigger races. And it happened again on Friday at Doncaster and Cheltenham, the dolling off of fences. If we're going to do this and we're going down this path, why are we starting meetings? We should be starting racing at 10 a.m. Like if we're going to do jump racing, because the low sun in the winter means that they ain't going to, it's happening so many times now. It's happening more times than I can ever remember. And that's not what national racing is about. Zigzagging in between hurdles or zigzagging between fences. Like for last 8 furlongs of a race or something. It's just a mockery of it, isn't it? Am I being wrong here?
No, it is a mockery, because if they're going to take fences out and then the funneling horses between fences and hurdles and what have you, I mean, it puts all the bosses at yet another massive disadvantage for starters.
It does.
I mean, I just don't really get this, because the sun has been in the sky quite a while.
It has, yeah.
And it didn't used to happen. So when the old gung-ho cavaliers who didn't give a monkeys whether they could see the fence or not, or are we just getting a bit berserker on this?
Again, it comes back to the old nanny state and this transforms to the flat where we have overwatered ground in the summer months, because we've brought this nanny state in that no, you can't have good nice genuine good to firm. You've got to have nice good ground. Everyone wants to, but I get the pressure the Clarks are under.
Yeah, but on the other side of the coin, you've got Holly and the henpecked hubby out in Japan or wherever they are. Send them in them better turf.
Big on the pan.
Yeah, big on the pan, in fact. Yeah.
Sorry, I'll shut up. But yeah, it is, and this is the thing that they've even said, like we said on a past sermon, that the Japan ground was very fast. They were surprised how fast that was, and yet they said it was safe. They said it was perfectly safe. Whether that's because, like I said, what Prescott said, we've decided to take a disastrous policy of watering, and then you end up with.
And nobody asked about this, did they? I mean, Clark's just took it upon themselves.
Yeah, it ended up in, didn't it, by stealth?
Yeah, because there was a directive that they were supposed to aim for good to firm.
Yeah, the jockey club, the BHA, have never wavered on what the Clarks should be doing. But however, the Clarks have seemed to have, like you said,
the jockey club might never have wavered on what they're meant to be doing, but they've never, ever taken any action against a Clark who has gone beyond good to firm with the watering.
No. So we're in a position now where we're doling off fences for safety reasons for jockeys. And by the way, I've never ridden a horse into a fence with a son, like beating down. So I'm not going to start saying that we shouldn't do that. But if we were combating, it's only common sense that if you, particularly your chase races, hurdle races, I can take or leave it. But I think a lot of folk that go racing for the national hunt scene want to see horses jump fences, and I think that's where you need to have your chase races nowhere near the low sun potential time. And I think it's time track really got to grips with that. And fuck the TV schedule. It needs to be done properly. And this is the laughable thing. The King George got a global industry pat on the back from all the Racing Post journos. Oh, what a good idea this is. Ed Chamberlain, I think, even said, yeah, this is really good. The King George, let's push it back so it doesn't clash with the football kickoffs on Boxing Day. Yeah. Okay, lads. So then now
we break Boxing Day. We could have a King George over 8 fences.
I'm going to say we go to 2:30 and there's a big sun. There's a big egg yolk in the sky, and then it's like, oh my God, one of the feature races of the winter, and you're jumping off the fences, a disgrace. And again, this is what we say about forward thinking and how bodies could really be better at what they do, and clearly they're not, because we're going to come on to the all-weather abandoned comedy show of the weekend. And the bit I want to know, John and Chris, is how the trainers and jockeys could walk the track literally 30 minutes before the first and go, this is no good. And yet the ground staff and Clark, right, thought it was perfectly acceptable to race on. Why is this?
This takes me back, actually, to the glory days at Redcar when John Gundil was in charge. There was possibly, despite a valiant effort from Kirkland Telrace, possibly the most useless clerk of the course has ever been in the entire racing industry. And Redcar was abandoned one day due to rutted ground with holes here, there and everywhere.
Yeah.
And he was interviewed on what was the racing channel at the time afterwards. And they said, well, when you walked the course, why didn't you spot this? And he said, I walked the course to determine the state of the going, not to say whether it's safe or not. And it wasn't tongue-in-cheek. He was absolutely deadpan serious about that. I mean, fair enough, the man's a complete idiot, but And this is what we're up against. These are the people that's in charge. The BHA put in charge in these positions.
I mean, Ian Jardine came on, I think, at the race as it was after, and he was like really, he was really vociferous and critical of Newcastle, and he said honestly, he said literally, he went out there with his stick, and he said literally, he says it was frozen about an inch under the surface. It was clearly not raceable. And how you employ so basically what that's saying, John, is that the staff, whoever worked there, are incompetent.
Well, it is, isn't it? It's just ranking competence. If a trainer and a stick can decipher the fact that it's frozen an inch from the surface, what the hell are these other people looking at?
Yeah, like I said, to be abandoned that close to the off time again. This shows race, and they couldn't race
again. Where are the BHA? Where's the inquiry?
Well, they're too busy, like the Irish people, chucking the book at Ronan McNally. Listen, Ronan McNally will divide opinion. He stops horses. He gets them off stupid marks. He has fortunes on them, and they're either 6-4 and piss up, or the 33s and tailed off. And whether that's your cup of tea, and some will find it their cup of tea, the point is that this happens with a lot of big trainers and owners also, and the untouchable being the green and gold. Because I mean, imagine coming after the green and gold, and he suddenly pulls the plug and says, "Do you know what? I'm not going to support Irish racing anymore. You're coming for me. You're saying I'm bending the rules, so I'm not going to support all these stables, horses in training. I'm just going to stop." And then, what does Irish racing do then? How many yards would shut down or be ridiculously hampered if the man in green and gold said, "Do you know what?
I would suggest less than expected, because the underbidders would get these horses."
Well, that's it. That comes into another debate about power grab in terms of like how Coolmore and Godolphin took over the game. And like you say, is that good for the sport? Because, like you say, without these big entities, it becomes possible maybe once again for somebody with smaller legs. Though I'll probably dispute that, because as we've seen with football, Saudi Arabia have got their eye on the ball in terms of racing, and I could see kind of a Saudi challenge in British racing in years to come. If there's gaps, like you said, we've lost Judmont as a he's still, they're still there.
He wasn't sales though, was he? More as a vendor,
no.
really.
No. Obviously, and Sheikh Hamdan has left us, so there's potential of the gap. I'll be surprised if the Saudis don't pop up. I mean, they're popping up for the football clubs, so I'd be surprised if the Saudi, and they popped up for the golf, the live golf. So I would be shocked if the Saudis, in some shape or form, don't make a challenge to the current domination by Coolmore and
But going back to your point about Ronan McNally and the apparent sort of disparity in treatment, that just sort of serves to underline the fact that racing is a feudal system, isn't it? To get involved in racing, and to earn a living from it, to some extent you have to defer to the acknowledged hierarchy. So there's people at the top that are getting horses well handicapped by whatever means, not necessarily to land gambles, but to sort of target specific races, but they're never mentioned. And the press does bear some responsibility for highlighting the antics of people like Ronan McNally, etc., when there are other trainers doing similar things, albeit without landing big gambles, that are moneyed or titled or rather are higher up the kind of the social totem pole. because, you know, what's good for one should be good for the other. But, you know, people like Ronan McNally, to some extent, are easy pickings, aren't they? They're easy to pick off because, you know, they're highlighted, they enjoy a lot of publicity. But there are trainers in England and Ireland who are kind of, you know, better respected and part of the establishment, and no one says anything about those people, and that's the problem, I think.
Racing has never, ever liked anybody from the wrong background that could do a job. And I mean, you can go back right back to the likes of Ken Payne, who had about 100 horses in training at the Kilts place back in the 70s. And he made mint out of filling horses with vitamin B12 and backing them off the boards in cellars. Racing couldn't wait to get a shot of him. And there's loads of other examples as well, you know, but they're always from that sort of background, you know.
Yeah, ruffians, aren't they? They're sort of coarse, slightly, you know, shady characters. And the problem is the press kind of focus on those rather than the antics of, you know, people who are titled or part of racing's aristocracy. That's the problem.
Yeah, and some punters will miss Ronan because Ronan, when his horse started favourite, I think he had something. I haven't got the stats in front of me, but I did them. I think it was like a 72% strike rate when his horse went off market leader. So your normal punters, you know, he's probably thinking, well, we know what to do here. We just back Mr. Ronan, you know. Yeah. So like you say, it's just, I don't know. It's like you said, Chris. One rule for one rule for another. But that's the way racing works in both codes in Ireland, this side of the water. Talking about this side of the water, Lydia Hislop, who we're all frightened to death of her. We are.
Definitely, yeah.
You know, she'd eat me for breakfast. And it's an interesting. We have to cover this because this is what we do. You know, we've had a couple of tweets from listeners on Twitter saying Lydia has her account been hacked, promoting race share today. Lydia quoting race share as, you know, looks bona fide, TNC's very transparent. People are saying, is Lydia on the gravy train? Chris?
Well, I think we had sort of this conversation before we started recording. You know, the model that a lot of these very large syndicates sort of operate, or clubs or whatever the sort of legal entity is, you know, relies on lots of people paying relatively small sums of money for a measure of enjoyment. And you know, when you do the sums, you know, we were talking about, like, you could probably buy a horse for, you know, I don't know, 15, 20 grand out of a claimer, or the trainer will sell you one that's worth 50p. You go out to market, spend a load of money on advertising, get endorsements, etc. And if you can get sort of, you know, thousands and thousands of people spending 40 quid for the year, you're going to make a big fat profit. But, you know, we know, because we've been involved in the sport a while, that those people are getting turned over. But for many people, that 40 quid is great value. You know, yes, they owe nothing. They get nothing for it other than a newsletter. They might win a badge to see it run sort of once or twice a year, or a stable visit, or a social event. That's fantastic value. And I think you'll find a lot of those people are happy with the economics. You know, we wouldn't be, because we say, well, you know, that horse is only worth 10 grand. It's been syndicated for 50. Most people don't give a shit. And because they're excited, and, you know, it's a social event, and, you know, it's 40 quid for a year. What are you moaning about? But so, look, you know, I'm not in favour of these sort of big things, big clubs, etc., because you don't get any insight, etc. If I was going to do it, you know, I'd pal up with sort of half a dozen people I know, and you get a real measure of insight. But for people who find going to the stables exciting, that's great. You know, I couldn't think any more boring, but for a lot of people, it's a good day out, and it's great value for a whole 12 months. Why not? So I can see both sides of the fence, but my own view is, I wouldn't go near it, you know, wouldn't touch it with a barge pole, but there are loads of people who would.
I mean, Chris, it's to be said. I mean, I'm not sort of like sticking up for Lydia here, because I know some of our listeners will be thinking, wanting us to go for her, but
sure, we
know from syndicates in the past where they've oversold horses, as in you think you own 10%, and you've paid $2 grand for your 10%, and they've sold 150% of the horse. So you
that's
you really
completely different, though, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
That's sort of fraudulent, isn't it? But as I understand, these very large ones, I don't think there's, and I could be completely wrong, I don't think there's any sort of entitlement to any sort of ownership aspect of it. It's almost like it's a sort of a club. It's a social event. Clearly if you're overselling or something, that's a different matter. But for these very large ones, which, 30, 40 quid a year, great Christmas present, what are they buying? They're buying a newsletter, a couple of social events in a year, and sort of some regular contact. And for a lot of people, that's fine. That's great. They want to get involved. So, but yeah, I mean, it's not something that would interest me. And if people ever ask me about stuff, I'd say no. I mean, I told you I'm not going to mention them, but there was one of the very early sort of large syndicates, a guy that was very closely attached to that many years ago. Used to sell these sort of packages for sort of 30, 40 quid a year, and then often you get people coming on and say, "Oh, I haven't got 40 quid. Can I give you a tenner for the year?" And they were happy to take anything off the people because what they were selling or what they were buying had absolutely no value whatsoever, other than the newsletter, which cost pennies to produce. So, that's the model. Sort of pile them high, sell them cheap, and it kind of works, I think, if you've got the right marketing kind of strategy.
Yeah, indeed. John, your thoughts on this?
Well, I think one thing Lydia Hislop has proven over the years, while she's been at the top of her profession, is that she's anything but stupid. And I'd be very interested in finding out how many offers she's had similar to this over the years that she's turned down, because I do not think for a minute a setup like this, with the potential to taint her brand, shall we say, would have been given anything other than the most careful consideration.
Yeah.
I would be astonished if anything untoward came out about this particular setup, I mean, you look at higher profile syndicates. How much would Harry Herbert pay to have her on board?
Yeah.
Bundles. Her endorsement is great.
I mean, if Harry Herbert had Lydia Hislop endorsing Highclere, he would look like a masturbation experiment that took place on Mars gone wrong.
Definitely.
So I would be astonished if there was anything untoward about this. She's too sharp to get involved in anything pokey.
Indeed, and our listeners now will give us grief because they'll say, "You've gone scared again on Lydia, haven't you?" Yes, we have.
You call it like it is, though. I mean,
yes.
What's the point listening to us?
And to be fair, we did have this chat off air, and we were pretty unanimous in what we thought. It weren't a case of, oh well, Lydia's just on the gravy train on this one, like some would, and just take the money. Whether she's, who knows if she's even taking the money? It could just be an innocent. I kind of like this.
It's been a favour for a mate.
It could be. We don't know. That's the thing. I mean, I think there are two arguments to this, and I get people that say it's a rip-off. The fag paper maths say that Rayshare are ripping people off in terms of what you're getting for your cash, but for £39, like Chris said, to get a newsletter, to get like the chance for a stable visit or a chance to get in the middle with a trainer at a race meeting, to some it's a dream, because they're never ever going to be able to.
£3 a month for a newsletter, and people's dancing, aren't they?
Well, yeah, especially when it's telling you about the horse and that, oh yes, we're going to ready the horse for this day, and then it wins at say a nice price or an half decent price, and it's like, wow, this for 39 quid a year, 39 quid all in, Yeah. So it's very difficult to kind of crib these sort of operations, and like you say, it's like you said, Chris, it's a sell en masse. It's just keep going, keep selling.
Put it this way: if you had plugged Harry Herbert, I'd have gone for it.
Yeah, and to be fair to Lydia as well, again, balance here before people start saying, "Oh, you're scared. You're not going after Lydia." Like John says, and Chris before, she could have gone for lots of things. I'm sure she's been offered. I bet she will have. She'll have been offered lots of things to sort of like promote, do, and say, you know, would you put your name to this? And she hasn't. And she's very, from what I can see, barely ever promoted anything. So fair enough. If she thinks this is worth promoting, then you know that's where we're at. Nothing really to add. Right, some questions before we get on to the last topic of the show. And so we love listeners' questions. John does a good job on Sunday morning of rounding them up. There's
we nick the weird in ones if I was a shit.
there's been a few today, and Jeff Banks was kind of wading with some shit. Jeff Banks has been
caffeine.
I think so. I mean, you know.
I don't think Jeff would bring the bed.
I mean, right, one of the Jeff questions then. Right, whose idea was it to create dressage horses out of 3-mile chasers, and were they sectioned? Would England have scored more penalties if the knee wasn't bent? And is Jerry Hannon as good in bed as he is calling them in? Does he make the
I can only speak with authority on one of those, and yes, Jerry is that good.
I mean, the Jerry Hannon thing made me chuckle because the man, I feel like he's having an heart attack in the last 50 yards of every call. It's just, Chris, have you heard him? You heard Jerry?
Yeah. He gets very excited, doesn't he? You know, you fear for him in the last furlong. That one day he's going to go pop, isn't he? I think.
I think he gets to breathe, doesn't he?
Yeah. He's woman's dream. He breathes through his ears, doesn't he? That's the thing.
Of course, Jeff Banks was a very, very close second place at the time of pulling our COTY 2022 awards this week to a certain other journalist. I'm not going to mention on the show because for obvious reasons, but yeah, good old Jeff. Everyone loves sticking the boot into old Jeff, which we all do. Yeah. So Jeff, we'll have Jeff back on the show and stick the boot into him, John. I think it's good fun, good sport. Some daft questions then before the last topic. You Bears has been on and said, are the bar stewards in favour of criminalising wolf whistling? And if so, which team member will have to make the biggest behavioural change to accommodate the new law? Do you know what? I don't think I've never wolf whistled anyone.
I think it's more sort of public appreciations of female beauty, isn't it? It's sort of, you used to get the vans where the fella used to lean out, sound the horn and make some bellow some heartless comment. But I haven't seen that for years, and I wear a mini skirt whenever I go out, and no one wolf whistles me, so it can't be happening.
No, I could see you with your airy legs.
Honestly, I'm most unconvincing. The only thing I'm proud of, I'd make the most unconvincing transsexual. No one would ever be in any doubt, honestly. Yeah. So, but I haven't seen it. I remember when as a kid, like the mid-80s and stuff, and it used to be a thing, didn't it? People used to, but I just don't see it anymore. I think the world's moved on. So, and it's not particularly pleasant, is it? I mean, it's normally fat old blokes in vans, and that sort of do. So, my daughter sort of claims that's not the case. She goes out and she said it is sort of, still a thing. So I suppose you have to defer to those with experience. But she said, yeah, it happens a lot. But I just haven't heard of it recently.
Yeah. I mean, I can speak for John. John don't bother whistling. He just straight with a chloroform, and they're in the cellar.
With the hammer. Yeah.
This is something mainly of disgust, actually, because in all fairness, I get away with absolute murder. So,
that's what Peter Sutcliffe said.
I honestly don't know how I do it. I mean, I look like a vandalised cemetery, for fuck's sake. And yet I continue to surprise myself.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but as I said, if wolf whistling was banned, I don't think that would be a problem. It's just really some of the terrible things I say when I'm chatting women up.
that don't belong in this era, John.
Well,
No, quite.
in any era, you know. As I said, I don't know how the hell I get away with it, really.
Well, I'm glad you do. You know, he's one in the eye. Or is it?
Never heard it called that before. But
No, change subject. Right. So next one, he's back on the Ronan front. Trainer Geezer's been on, and he said, "Is what Ronan did any different to Sir Mark running one questionably to get it off a mark of 25 to win 5? Well, 25 is a bit exaggerated, but
a bit ambitious, yeah.
Yeah, Linda Ramsden used to, but to win 5 on the bounce. And if not, is there a class status edge to the powers that be going after McNally? And with the precedent that you can now be found guilty of misconduct for passing on win information as opposed to the classic passing on of lay information, does this mean the game is up for all punting yards? Will it stop trainers from saying a horse worked well, etc.? No, not all. It literally, they're coming after McNally because he's uber bent. He's gettable in terms of he's not green and he's not like a significant player in the industry. He's not got a double barrel surname. He didn't go to Sandhurst and get kicked out. And like John says, it literally is, it's down to certain people. And if you, like Jim Best, you come in the game, you start like fucking it all up, and then they'll kick you out. That's what they'll do. But if you are of a certain ilk and a certain person, they won't. And that's right. Chris, that's right, isn't it?
That's right. And of course, you know, without sort of continue harping on about the press, you know, look, journalists are, you know, interested in the story because that's why they're journalists. And, you know, McNally is a good story, isn't he? Because he's easily gettable. He doesn't just bet them. He has his absolute bollocks on. And the improvement in form that he used to be able to rot from horses, you know, is spectacular. Whereas I suppose some of the double-barrel characters, you know, ultimately Sir Mark using him as an example, yeah, you know, he'll presumably run horses over unsuitable trips and try and get, you know, win X9 on the bounce. And I expect he does that in the main to, you know, win races. Whereas Ronan always has one day in mind, doesn't he? One spectacular touch for a particular horse. And you know, and the press highlight that. And that's, you know, inevitable, I suppose. But yeah, it's a class thing. It's a not wanting to rock the boat thing. So yeah, that's why he's going down the road, I think.
Indeed. Okay. Dupont Tom says, is there a winner to pay for Xmas? I say yes, there is. The 1.05 Beth Mead for Sports Personality of the Year. I mean, people moan that there's no such thing as interest, and you know we don't get any interest in banks. 105 for Beth Mead. That's 5%. She can't lose. You know, England have got knocked out of the World Cup. Who is she? She's the lioness, the lioness woman that you know that did well in the Euros this summer.
Don't know, never heard of her.
Yeah,
honestly.
Well, it should be Ben Stokes. Ben Stokes has changed Test cricket like on its head. He's literally he's a genius. Ben Stokes should win it hands down, but it won't. It'll go to Beth Mead and 105 because the BBC love that shit. They love her they love it. You know, they love all that. So 105. Beth Mead is absolutely, it's 5%. It's an absolute gift.
Free money.
You cannot get 5% with a bank, Dupont Tom. So there's your winner.
Yes.
You know, I know, creeping on, where give us a winner, Dupont Tom, a disgraceful person asking for winners at this time of year. Right, last topic then. We're going to talk about luck in betting. It's a topic that Chris has actually produced literature before, and you know, on this, which is very, very interesting. And it showed that people of different backgrounds, different skills, you know, still need that required luck to get where they're going. And some people don't, some people do. It's when you're in the long game punting, it can be soul destroying when you're continuously on the wrong end. You know. You know it. Everyone's been through it. Falls at the last. You know, a horse that's gone 5 clear and then packed in on the running and got caught. It's soul destroying. You know, and this is the thing. We talk about luck, and you know, some people will say, well, it it doesn't matter, because in the long term, if you're making the right bets, it doesn't matter. I get that, but at the same time, Chris, right?
Yeah.
When does it matter if you're running out of money? I mean, because at the end of the day, you can make a year is such a short space of time in terms of betting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can make a lot of good calls in the year, and still like be getting terrible variances in terms of bad beats, and it's that it's staying in the game. That's the key, staying in the game. But how do you stay in the game if it's continually kicking you in the nuts?
Well, you can't, and you know, and obviously the maths people will say that, look, there is no such thing as luck, in quotes. You know, variance doesn't favour one person or another. But, you know, anecdotally, we know in life that some people just seem, superficially at least, to be luckier than others. You know, I mean, Warren Buffett, the American investor, attributes, you know, a lot of his financial success to the fact that, you know, he's living to a very old age, right? You know, so the compound effects of him staying in the game and him being about 80 odd years old ensures that, you know, he's making a lot of money. So I can see both sides of the argument. You know, I don't obviously believe that there is some sort of, you know, existential power called luck that, you know, bestows gifts on some people and not others. But it does seem that some people, you know, whether by luck or just by better judgment that they're not aware of, just seem to get better rolls of the dice than a lot of people. And it is unfathomable, but it does matter. It really does. You know, luck is important in any aspect of life, I think. You know, or timing, whatever you want to call it. Timing is key. You know, park benches are full of people with brilliant ideas that just move too soon. You know, and a year later, somebody's come up with the idea, had the money, and boom, they make the million. But the original person didn't have the money at the time, and, you know, sees that ship sailing off into the sunset. I don't know.
John, are you of the view that if you suddenly just tip one of your best naps of the year to someone that seems to be a £7 penalty, does that weigh heavy on your mind sometimes?
I wouldn't say it weighs heavy on me, man, you know, but I'm always quite pleased to hear when Golf Club hasn't listened to the pod. No, I mean, it is a factor. Paul Mellon said two very significant things, I think, in his public utterances. One was, if you owe the bank $100, you've got a problem. If you owe the bank 100 million, the bank's got a problem.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, it's better to be lucky than clever.
Yeah.
I
go
think
with that.
Significant.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
it's odd. I think, Lee and John, I think, you know, people, I often think that, you know, whether it's luck or not, that people that overanalyze things, you know, tend to be less lucky than those that just have a feeling or go for something. And anecdotally, we all know loads of people that you think, oh, how's he made a load of money? Well, I think you can be guilty of overanalyzing stuff and, you know, letting it get into and sort of overanalyzing the events. And a lot of people are better at just shrugging off bad beats, I think, because they don't recognize that it's variance. They just think, oh, well, that's life, and plow on. So I think it's more subtle than, you know, the idea of some people necessarily being luckier than others. I think it's how you deal with the bad beats, and sometimes it's not good to overanalyze it, I think.
Well, look at Portersley, that day at Redcar.
Unbelievable.
You know, I mean, we've never seen anything like it. I mean, he was charlied off his chops. he came out the bog looking like Elizabeth I.
Like a Japanese geisha.
You know, you've got a little bit on your nose there, Terence, you know, and I mean, the rest of it was all over his face. I mean, he's not a betting man. He proceeded to go 100 quid winner, 100 quid winner, 200 quid winner, while me and Lee were sat there doing my brains in.
It's true.
And, you know, to say luck isn't a factor, well, you know, I mean, he came out, his eyeballs were down near his nipples. He could hardly form words, but he nearly went through the card.
Yeah.
I think sometimes the things that we attribute necessarily to bad luck are a result of factors that we haven't considered and thought about. You know, if I get up and go to the kitchen, right, and the ceiling collapses on me and kills me stone dead, you know, superficially, that's fucking unlucky. But if you look into it and you say, well, you know, he built the ceiling himself, he's not a builder, he's been warned about it, then that's not bad luck. That's, you know, I've chosen to ignore significant factors, right? But sometimes with horse racing, you think, that's dead unlucky. But there may be something that you hadn't considered that was unknowable to you that caused that to happen, but you've looked at it and go, that's fucking bad luck. But actually, if you knew what that factor was in advance, you probably wouldn't have had the bet. So it's a really complicated subject, but a lot of people just seem to, have that turn of the card, don't they? It's unfathomable, and it's frustrating.
And I think regarding to your past articles past article you sent me, it's getting the look at the right point.
Yeah, totally.
Of your life. It's you know, some people become incredibly successful because of a scenario that is presented to them exactly at the right point where they needed it presented to them. Some people don't ever get that opportunity.
No.
And that are equally, if not more talented. So when we all discuss horse form, and you know, I'm not saying I'm more talented than anyone else. I'm just saying that basically, in fact, I know people that are more talented than me that have failed at this game because they haven't been able to stay in the game. And that's what it's all about. It's being able to stay there and hang around, even, you know, through the bad times, because the good times always come. It's just a case of when they come and timing. Timing is key. Like you said, Chris, I think the luckiest people are the ones that get the timing.
Yeah, I think I've looked at, not just anecdotally, but, you know, you get these entrepreneurs that make a load of money and, you know, a huge amount of money, and they write a book and tell you that how they did it, etc. I would wager that very few are successful at making a second fortune. You know, and a lot of these dragons that come onto the, you know, the BBC programme and all that, you know, you look at their other interests, you know, they fucked up a lot of times after they made their fortune, which suggests that they just got lucky. They're at the right place at the right time. Very few make several fortunes in their lifetime. What they tend to do is make the money and then sort of, you know, make a number of investments, invest in property and sit on their asses. So, you know, a lot of things that people attribute to skill, I think, is just being in the right place at the right time and having the planets align. And, you know, most people don't have that luck in their life.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think he summed it up really well. It's what I believe in. I believe in my ability as well, but at the same time, you have to have that timing. And like I said about staying in the game, I know people that are definitely more talented than me that have fallen by the wayside and you know, become. We've got a driller. Got a driller in Gdansk. Anyway.
I thought you were going to announce something there.
So it's some kind of driller. So that's a suitable time to end the show anyway. But the good thing is, Macadore has been on, and he wants a toasty maker. So please, listeners, get on Twitter. Macadore's asked. He wants a good toasty maker. Give him some good recommendations.
Don't get ripped off. Just use a cast iron frying pan and make grilled cheese.
It's rubbish. Breville, all day long, Breville. Head and shoulders. It's a Mark Prescott of the toasty world, I'm telling you. Different gear, Breville.
Right, superb show, chaps. Hope you all enjoyed that, listeners. We're back on Friday as usual with some more shit tips. But it's not totally shit, remember that. It's never totally shit. And on Sunday, of course, now the driller's come back. Thanks, driller.
4-minute warning, isn't it?
I know, this is my big announcement. Icy's back on the show for the 18th. And we're going to discuss who's possibly going to get Cotty of 2022. Amongst other betting stories. So that'll be a show to look forward to next Sunday. So I hope you enjoyed me, John and Chris. I'm in deepest, darkest Gdansk with a driller upstairs at this time, and that's terrible. That's all from us. Bye for now.